Okay, hello guys. Welcome to today's lesson, and we're going to talk about articles. So, what are articles? In English, we have the indefinite article, which is a or an, and we also have the definite article, the. So, in this lesson, we're going to review some of the basic rules using articles, and then we're going to look in a lot more detail at some of the more advanced rules involving articles. And finally, we'll look at some of the most common mistakes to avoid. Some mistakes a lot of non-native English speakers make, and hopefully after this lesson, you guys will be able to avoid making them. Let's go. So, have a look. What do you see? We've got a sandwich and it looks like a chocolate bar. Now, I had a sandwich and a chocolate bar for lunch. So in the first sentence here, we can see we're using the indefinite article. A sandwich, a chocolate bar. However, in the next sentence, the sandwich wasn't very good, but the chocolate bar was delicious. Now we're using the definite article. So, a singular common noun. Now, a common noun can be any place, thing, town, village. We've got some examples here: sandwich, boy, bar, girl, tree, country, teacher. The important thing with a common noun is it's not specific. So, a singular common noun in English must have an article. We use a or an, the indefinite article, the first time we talk about something. I had a sandwich. This is the first time I've mentioned a sandwich. And we use the to refer to a specific thing that we know about. So in the next sentence here, I've already mentioned the sandwich. I've mentioned the chocolate bar. We know about it, and that's why I'm now using the definite article, the. Let's take a look at a few more examples. A boy and a girl were sitting next to me. The boy was Irish, but I think the girl was American. So once again, we can see here the first time I'm mentioning something, I'm using the indefinite article. And of course, boy and girl are common nouns. We're not being specific. We didn't name the boy or name the girl. And in the second sentence, we know what I'm talking about, and that's why we're using the. When I was on holiday, I stayed at a hotel. Sometimes I ate at the hotel, and sometimes I went to a restaurant. So here, once again, hotel, the first time I've mentioned it, I've used an indefinite article. However, in the next sentence, the hotel. We know what I'm talking about, but then we've got the indefinite article again, and that's because it's the first time I've mentioned a restaurant. All right, let's do a bit of practice with these basic rules. So have a look. We've got two sentences here. In the blank space, see if you can choose whether you need to use the indefinite article, a or an, or the definite article, the. So in number one, I bought a magazine. Magazine, once again, it's a singular common noun. It needs the indefinite article. It's the first time I've mentioned it. And a packet of cigarettes. A packet. This morning. Now, magazine again, I've mentioned it before, so now we're using the. The magazine is in my bag, but I can't remember where I put the packet of cigarettes. Very good. Number two, I saw, now just be careful here, accident. Once again, it's a singular common noun, but have a look at the first letter here. What sound does this letter make? A. Now, A is a vowel sound. When a word begins with a vowel sound and we're using the indefinite article before it, we must use an accident, an umbrella. So anytime a word begins with a vowel sound, use an, not a. So here, car crashed into tree. So again, we've got two more singular common nouns. It's the first time I've mentioned them, so a car crashed into a tree. Fortunately, the driver of the car wasn't injured. So now I'm being specific, okay? It's the driver of the car I've mentioned in the previous sentence. We know what I'm talking about, and that's why we're using the definite article. Excellent. Okay, let's move on. So have a look. What do you see here? It looks like a kitchen, and we have 1, 2, 3 windows. So if it's very warm, you might ask, can you open a window? So in this question, a window, it could be referring to one of many windows in the room. We're not talking about a particular window. Any window is okay. However, have a look here. So in this room, we only have one window. So you might ask, can you open the window beside the door? So here we use the definite article to talk about a specific thing. It's the window beside the door. Not any window, the specific window. The one beside the door. Okay, excellent. What do you see now? It looks like we have the sun and the earth. So we usually use the when there is only one of something. The earth, the sun. So let's take a look at a few examples. The earth orbits the sun. One earth, one sun. Now, of course, there are many stars in the universe, but here we're talking about our sun. There's only one sun that the earth orbits, the sun. Ireland is located beside the Atlantic Ocean. So once again, the Atlantic Ocean. There's one Atlantic Ocean. Now you may notice there's no article before Ireland, and I'll talk a little bit about that later in the video when we go into some more detail with the advanced rules. Okay, the next example. The solar system is in the Milky Way galaxy. Once again, we're talking about our solar system. There's only one solar system that the Earth is in, and it's in the Milky Way galaxy. So when there's only one of something, we usually use the definite article, the. Okay, have a look. What do we have here? It looks like water. Okay, and down here we have a boy, and he's eating vegetables. Water and vegetables. We don't say a water or a vegetables. What kind of noun is water? You might remember in one of our previous lessons we looked at uncountable nouns, things that can't be counted. Water is an example of one of these nouns. And vegetables, it's not uncountable, but it's plural. So our next rule, we do not use articles when we are generalizing. So speaking in general about uncountable nouns and also plural countable nouns. So some examples here. He likes to put sugar in his tea. Both of these nouns, sugar and tea, are uncountable. We're speaking in general, we do not use an article. If we said he likes to put a sugar in a tea, it is actually not grammatically correct. Both these nouns are uncountable. Water is an important resource. So here we're talking about water, liquid, uncountable, no article. His parents usually give her good advice. Once again, advice, another example of an uncountable noun. You may remember looking at some of these examples a few weeks ago in our lesson about nouns. And finally, vegetables are good for you. So vegetable, it's a countable noun, one vegetable, two vegetables. Here we're using it in the plural form. We're speaking in general. No article is necessary. All right, very good. So another little bit of practice for you guys. 5 sentences. Have a look at the blank space. Try to think about the rules we've discussed so far and see if you can decide the correct article to use. A or an or the. So number 1, can you recommend a good restaurant? So restaurant, singular, common noun. We need an article. It's the first time we've mentioned it. We're not speaking specifically, so good restaurant, very good. Number 2, how fast does, can you remember the rule? There's only one moon, there's one earth, so we usually use the when there's only one of something. So how fast does the moon travel around the earth? You may notice the pronunciation changes a little bit with earth here. And the reason is if we have a noun that begins with a vowel sound and we're using the definite article before it, we usually pronounce the earth. Number 3, it's very hot in here. Could you open the door to the garden? So here we're talking about a specific door, not any door, it's the door to the garden. Did the teacher give you? Okay, so be very careful here. Homework. What kind of noun is homework? Can we count it? No, it's uncountable. Therefore, the rule we've looked at, with an uncountable noun, when we're speaking in general, we do not use an article. So, did the teacher give you the homework? If we said a homework, it would be grammatically incorrect. And finally, number 5, he ate burger for dinner yesterday. Now, burger, singular common noun, I haven't mentioned it before. We must use an article, a burger. Great, really, really good, guys. Okay, we're gonna have a look at some more advanced rules in a moment, but just before we do, let's review what we've discussed so far. Singular common nouns must have an article. Remember, a common noun, any person or thing that is not specific. We use a or an the first time we mention something. I saw a boy. She saw a dog. We use the when we know the specific thing being referred to. So for example, the first time we mention something, she saw a dog. The next sentence, the dog was barking. Now we know the thing being referred to, therefore we're using the definite article, the. And finally, we usually use the when there is only one of something. And just remember, with uncountable nouns and plural nouns, when we're speaking in general, no article is needed. He likes vegetables. Water is an important resource. She gave him good advice, not a good advice. Excellent. Okay. Let's go into a bit more detail now and look at some of the more advanced rules related to using articles. So have a look at this example here. This is the 4th day of our conference. So our noun here in bold is day, But have a look at what comes before it. Fourth. And we're using the definite article here. So the next rule is using articles with ranking and ordering expressions. So we use the with nouns that are modified by ranking or ordering expressions. Now, ranking or ordering expressions are just phrases like the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the next, the last, the previous, the following. The following is just another way of saying the next or what comes after. So some more examples. Did you pay the last time we went out for dinner? The next rule about articles is very important. So here, all of these nouns, they're modified with ranking and ordering expressions. Therefore, we use the definite article, the. So let's have a look at the next rule. Now in this picture here, it looks like a swimming pool. I can see a bar. It looks like a really nice hotel. You could say that is the most expensive hotel I've ever seen in my life. Now the phrase in bold here, what kind of expression is this? The most. This is what we call a superlative. So our next rule is using articles with superlatives. We use the with superlatives. So a superlative, for example, could be the best, the worst, the biggest, the smallest, the most important, the least interesting. Okay, so just the most extreme in any category is a superlative. So for example, this is the best day ever. The best day ever. He told the funniest joke. The most funny, the funniest joke. And just one more point before we move on. With comparatives, generally comparatives like bigger, smaller, faster, slower. With these words, they just follow the general rules with articles. So next time I'm in the restaurant, I'm going to order a bigger meal. Okay, if you're speaking specifically, maybe you're in an amusement park and you say, oh, I think I will try the bigger roller coaster. So just comparatives follow our normal rules with articles. With superlatives, we must use the. Okay, so back here, have a look at the examples. What do these three sentences have in common here? We need to walk south. They drove north all day. At the stop sign, turn left and walk 3 blocks. So, in all of these sentences, we've got directions, right? South, north, left. However, have a look at what comes before these directions. Walk. They drove, the past tense of drive. Turn. And these are all verbs. So the next rule is if a direction, so for example, northwest, southeast, left, right, directly follows a verb, we do not use an article with the direction. So walk south, north, walk the south. Drive north, not drive the north. So a verb followed by a direction, no article is needed. However, have a look down here. We need to walk to the south. Our house is in the north. The grocery store is on the right. Now we have articles before the directions. So what's different about these sentences? Have a look at what comes before the article. To, in, on. What kind of words are these? They're prepositions, right? So if a direction follows a preposition, you must use the. Walk to the south. Our house is in the north, on the right. So after a preposition, we use the plus direction. And the last group of examples here. We love the south. Have you ever visited the east? The west has better national parks. So what do these sentences have in common? Once again, we have directions, but here we're talking more about a region, right? A cultural or a geographical region. So our final rule here is we use the with compass directions. So compass directions, north, south, east, west, when relating to them as special geographical or cultural regions. The south, we're talking about the region here. The east, the region. The west, okay? All right, very, very good. So, have a look at the picture here. We see some happy people. It looks like they know each other very well. They're probably a family. So the examples. The Smiths love to go on holiday in France. So the Smiths. Here we're referring to the family, right? The Burns are originally from England. My brother lives next door to the Jacksons. So, a rule this time, the can be used with plural family names to refer to the family as a group. The Smiths, we're referring to the whole family, the group, that's why we're using the here. The Burns, the Jacksons, the Joneses, etc. Okay, we've got two sentences here. What's the difference between these two sentences? You can see they both have the word elderly in them. He is elderly. The organization helps the elderly. However, the word is being used very differently, right? In the first sentence here, elderly, we're using it as an adjective. We're describing the man. He is elderly. However, in the second sentence, the organization helps the elderly. We're not talking about one person this time. We're talking about a group of people. So, our next rule, the can be combined with certain adjectives to refer to a group of people. So, if we take the adjective blind and we put the before it, the blind, I'm now talking about a group of people. The same thing with the elderly, the rich, the homeless. These are all groups of people. And we can also do this with nationalities. The French, the Irish, the English. Okay? So, have a look here. So we've got the adjective French. I like French. I like the French. So you can see in the second sentence we're using an article. So be really careful here because using this article, it completely changes the meaning. Right, in the first sentence, if somebody said, I like French, what would someone understand? How would we interpret the meaning here? I like French. A native speaker would probably understand that this person is talking about the French language. Okay, I love English. We're talking about the language. However, in the second sentence, I like the French. We're now talking about the group, the nationality, the French people. So, remember, this is very important in situations where nationalities or ethnic groups and their languages might be confused. In such situations, the is used to specify that we are talking about the nationality or ethnic group rather than the language. Finally, Americans are great innovators. Brazilians are good at soccer. Italians have a great fashion sense. So these three examples, and what do they all have in common? Well, of course, first of all, we're generalizing. We're making some general statements. But also, we've mentioned three different nationalities. But have a look at the spelling of these nationalities. They all end with A-N-S, right? So our final rule here, when generalizing about nationalities or ethnic groups that end in the letters ANS, for example, Americans, Mexicans, Hawaiians, Brazilians, Argentinians, the is not usually used. Brazilians are good at soccer, not the Brazilians. That's when we're generalizing. However, if we want to speak more specifically, we can use the definite article. So, Brazilians are good at soccer, general statement. However, maybe I want to talk about the Brazilians in my class. The Brazilians in my class are very friendly. Now we're being specific. We're talking about a specific group of Brazilians. Therefore, we can use the definite article, the. Okay, really, really good, guys. Have a look here. So, beautiful picture. What do you see? It looks like we have a river, maybe a lake, some mountains, lots of nature, lots of geographical features. So the next rule we're going to look at is using articles with geographical names and also buildings. So a lot to remember here, unfortunately. So we use the with mountain ranges. Now a mountain range, it's not one mountain, it's a group of mountains. So for example, the Alps, the Himalayas, mountain ranges, more than one mountain. We also use the with rivers. So here in Dublin, we have the River Liffey, the River Liffey. A native speaker would never call it River Liffey. We always use the with rivers. With seas, so earlier on in our lesson, we looked at the Atlantic Ocean. With canals, deserts, the Sahara Desert, and also island groups. So with all of these things, we use the. And we also use the with the names of theaters, cinemas, hotels, galleries, and museums. So you can have the Hilton Hotel, the National Gallery. Okay, in Dublin, we have a very famous cinema called the Savoy. So some examples here. The river Danube flows into the Black Sea. So here we've got a river and a sea, therefore we must use the. The National Gallery and the British Museum are London tourist attractions. So we've got the name of a gallery and a museum. So once again, we must use the here. Okay, now have a look at these examples. Number one, Paris is one of the most beautiful cities in Europe. So here we've got an example of a superlative here, the most beautiful, so we use the. But what about the highlighted parts here? Paris, Europe. There's no article here, is there? Number two, Times Square is located near Central Park in New York. Once again, no articles are used before the words in bold. And finally, Mount Everest is the highest mountain in the Himalayas. So Himalayas, it's a mountain range, we're using the, but we're not using an article before Mount Everest. The reason is we don't usually use the with most countries, continents, regions ending with the name of a country or continent. So for example, North America, Southeast Asia, islands, states, provinces, towns, and cities. So for example, I live in Ireland. I don't live in the Ireland. He's from England. He's not from the England. These are both countries in Europe, not the Europe. But just be careful, because unfortunately we have a few exceptions to the rule to remember. So the USA is one exception. We use the with USA. However, if you're saying America, we don't use an article. So he's from the USA, she lives in America. Another exception would be the UK, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, the Czech Republic. So just a few exceptions to remember. But most countries, continents, we do not use an article. We also don't use articles with roads, streets, parks, bridges, shops, and restaurants. So in Dublin, we have St. Stephen's Green. It's a famous park here in the middle of the city, so we don't say the St. Stephen's Green. In New York, you have Central Park, not the Central Park. Um, O'Connell Bridge, not the O'Connell Bridge. There are some exceptions here. So we don't use articles with roads, however, we do with motorways. So in Ireland, our largest motorway is the M50. And we also use articles with numbered roads. Okay, the M6, the R5, the A25. All right, really, really good. Just the final rule here. We also don't use articles with individual mountains and lakes. So that's why in our third example, Mount Everest, not the Mount Everest. So be really careful here. Mountain ranges, we use the Himalayas, the Alps. If we're talking about an individual mountain, no article. Mount Everest, Mount Kilimanjaro, and also lakes. So in Europe, we've got many famous lakes, Lake Bled, Lake Como, for example, not the Lake Bled. Great, okay, we're almost there, guys. Really, really good. I know it's a lot of rules to remember. So finally, what do you see? It looks like a hospital. So some examples here. She's in hospital. They are building a new hospital in my town. He was sent to prison for 2 years. My grandmother used to work in the prison as a cleaner. So you've probably noticed in 2 of these sentences, we're not using an article. However, in the other 2, we are. Our noun is the same. She's in hospital. They're building a new hospital. So it's the same word, hospital. Why are we using an article sometimes and not using it in other examples? Our final rule here is about institutions. So examples of institutions are words like prison, church, school, hospital, university. Now when we're talking about the institution and the normal purpose it is used for, we don't use an article. That's why in the first example here, she's in hospital. Now if somebody said this sentence, we would understand that the reason she's in hospital, she's probably not well. So here we're talking about the institution of hospital and the normal purpose it's used for. It's a place you go when you're sick so you can get better. She's in hospital. However, in the second example, they're building a new hospital in my town. In this example, we're talking about the building, not the institution and its purpose. The building. They're building, a new hospital in my town. And that's why we're using an article. And it's the same in our next 2 examples. He was sent to prison for 2 years. Now, why is someone sent to prison? They probably broke the law. They committed a crime. So we're talking about the institution prison and the purpose it's used for. It's a place you go as punishment. However, my grandmother used to work in the prison as a cleaner. So your grandmother is not a criminal. She's just working in the building, the prison. Okay? So institutions, when we're talking about their purpose, what they're used for, no article. He's in hospital. She's in prison. However, if we're just referring to the building, then we use an article. Another example, they go to church on Sunday. Probably go to church to pray. However, maybe you're giving someone directions. Walk past the church. It's the same word, church, but now we're just talking about the building, not the institution and its purpose. Okay, great. So just before we finish our lesson, I want to show you some of the most common mistakes non-native English speakers make using articles. And hopefully you guys will be able to identify the mistake and avoid making them in the future. So, first sentence here. we live in village. Can you guys see the mistake? Village, singular common noun. We need an article, right? So we live in a village. If we're being specific, we could also say we live in the village. So a singular common noun must have an article. And remember, a plural noun can be used with or without an article. It depends if we're speaking in general or being specific. I love reading books, general. Books, plural, no article. However, I love reading the books written by Stephen King. Now I'm being specific, I'm talking about the books written by Stephen King. Plural noun, using an article to be specific. Great, okay. Another one of the most common mistakes. Have a look here. He is best player in the team. He is best player in the team. So, best. This is a superlative. Can you guys remember our rule? For superlatives, we must use the. So he is the best player in the team. Great, well done. So the definite article the must be used with superlative adjectives. The Paris is big city. Alright, the Paris is big city. So we've actually got two mistakes here, right? First, Paris. Can you remember our rule? For cities, countries, most countries, and continents, we don't use an article. So Paris. Now city, it's a singular common noun. We must use an article. So correct here. Paris is a big city. Very good. We don't use articles with names of most countries, towns, cities, streets, parks, roads, shops, and lakes. And I know it's a lot to remember, but we're doing very, very well. We're almost finished here, guys. So he's in the prison because he robbed a bank. So here we've got a guy, he committed a crime. We're talking about prison, the institution, the purpose it's used for. Therefore, we don't use an article. He's in prison because he robbed a bank. So we don't use an article when you're thinking about the institution and the normal purpose it is used for. Guys, thank you very, very much for watching. I hope you found this lesson useful, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. Cheers.